Thank you for joining us again. We know that God is doing something in your life and setting a course and a path out ahead of you. There's blessings that are waiting for you. There's things that maybe you've been struggling with that God's preparing you to receive your victory and get up on top of things instead of be under the load that sometimes gets on people's lives. Today I want to bring a message to you, and it has to do with overcoming. And there's things that, sometimes we can't see our way clear to get to the place where we overcome. But hopefully after you hear this message today, you'll know that you are an overcomer and that nothing can stop you. Nothing that's named under heaven or earth is going to be able to hold you back from what God has for your life. We've all encountered difficulties in our life. We've all encountered things that seemed insurmountable to us, but we've come through those things, and God has made us stronger and better and more alive in those things. And instead of being dead in the moments of the trial that have come and tried to take control of our life. Now today, I want to look in Deuteronomy 30. And we're going to read in verses 19 and 20. And we're going to stay in Deuteronomy quite a bit today. But I want to talk about things that the choice that God gives you. You have a choice. You're not locked into one result. You're not locked into one pathway. The enemy tries to corner us, but God says, I've got different ways for my people to triumph and to overcome and to go forward. So let's read in verse 19 of Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter. It says, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, and blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your seed may live. Now here, he's exhorting the people. And he's telling them, this day is a different day. You're going to go ahead. You're going to make a new path. You're going to look for better results. You're going to look for things to be better in your life. And he said, in the things that you'll look at, he said, I've set before you life, and I've set before you death. I've set blessing, and I've set cursing. Each one of those is a path that we could follow. And the result would be one of those things that one of those four things that we just talked about. But he said here at the end of these four options, he said, therefore choose life. Choose the life that God is full in your life, that God is working for you. Now he says, when he says to choose life, he said both, so that both you and your seed may live. Now in verse 20, it tells you the results here of choosing life. It says this, that you may love the Lord your God, and that you may obey his voice, and that you may cleave unto him, for he is thy life, and he is the length of your days, that you may dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. God had promised these men and their heirs a certain place where they were going to end up. At times it seemed like that promise that he had made to the fathers of faith was not going to come true. They got misdirected. They got in trials. They had the enemy attack them. There were many reasons for them to quit and go back into slavery and bondage in the land of Egypt. But God brought them out of there to be free. You see, God took us out of the ways of the world and the course that the world has, so that we might have something in our life that lasts, something that is joyful, something where there's happiness and peace. If you're not in that place, if happiness and peace have eluded you, then I want to tell you today, listen to this message, because God has set for you a path and chosen something for you to make your life better. You see, he set these things, and he told them that you would, if you would choose life, that you would come to a place where you'd love the Lord your God. Your love would change. Instead of having a love for yourself and a love for other people, and that love would fail because of weaknesses and trials that come along. You know, sometimes we get into problems and we don't love ourselves. We don't like our life. We don't like how things are happening around us. But you see, he said, I'm setting you. I'm putting a direction in your life. I'm putting a godly direction in your life. And that direction takes you through all the trials that may try to stop you and may try to get you to go off the right path and get you to go into a place of defeat and anger and all of these things where you would have a loss of peace in your life. He said, you know, I'll make this place and I'll let you choose life, that you'll love God. The relationship that you have is a relationship of love. You know, a lot of times we love people and we love those around us and they fail us. But God never fails. Set your love and your heart on him. He does not fail. Amen. He does not let people down. He is there in the hour that you need him most. And it says that you would also obey his voice. You know, this isn't blind obedience. This is something where God tells you the way to go, what to do, how to get there. He sparks your interest or your spirit or your understanding in a moment, and it causes you to make a decision. And that decision turns out right, and it turns out to be a blessing in your life. And you find something that you fought to get a hold of. But God says, I'm just going to prompt you, and because of your love for me, you've drawn near to me. He said, I'm going to start telling you and showing you things, and I'm going to give you the desires of your heart. And he said that when you choose life, he said all these things, that you can love the Lord your God, you can obey his voice, but you can cleave unto him. You know, there's a lot of people hanging on to themselves or hanging on to something that's not very steady. But he said you can hang on to God. No matter what you've been through, no matter what comes your way, he's always there to hold on to. You cleave to him. It's not just holding on, it's holding on for dear life, because you need his strength, you need his understanding, and you need his thinking in your life and in your mind and your spirit to face all of these things that you're facing. It says when we do these things, he is your life and the length of your days. He's everything to you. When everything tries to come against you and take you down, he is there for you to pick you up and to carry you forward, because he has you in his control and in his hand. And the length of your days are in his keeping, instead of us fearful of when our days are going to come to an end, fearful of us not making it, fearful of dying early and passing away and not having what you need in your life, not having the peace of God to rule your life. But you see, God is saying here in these two verses that he has a place in life for you, that no earthly power can prevent it from happening in your life. You know, I've met a lot of people that they've had a lot of struggles in their life, and they've had things that have happened to them that were very, very difficult. But you see, there is a place that God has for people, that he can take them and he can grab a hold of their life, and he has a place for you that no earthly power can prevent you from getting there. You know, many of us have been through hardships and failures in our life. But God has a better place than those hardships. God has a better place than those failures. And he will allow you to get to that place. That's what this is talking about. You see, this is a choice that God gives us. That's not the world. or our surroundings. We don't have to depend on the world to make our way forward, or our surroundings to be completely to our liking or completely in line with what we want in our life. It can be totally contrary. But God can take your life and He can put you in a place of peace no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you're going to go through, or maybe what you're going through today. I want you to know that God has your life because He said, I have set these things before you. And if you look at that word set, it means three different things. And let me give these to you. One of them means to place at your disposal. And then there's another that means to set ordinances for observance. And lastly, there's one that it has to do with blessings and cursings. Things that have blessed your life and things that have been a curse to your life. You see, He said, I've set all this before you. When He says, I place these things at your disposal, it's something that you have a hand in, and the thing that you need, it brings gain to your life. You have some power to gain. You have power to be blessed and not cursed. God is for all things to be good to our life and for our life. And when He talks about the disposal of things, He has a treasure for you that He can open up and disperse to you, and it'll help you get through the difficult hours. It's not always just money, but it's Him and His presence in your life. You know, we get focused so much on finances, and I know we need money, but I know one thing, we need God more. Amen. And we need to know that He's with us and He's helping us no matter what the need might be in our life. You know, there's things that we get into that it's hard for us to overcome them. It's hard for us to understand what to do. But God comes and He said, I'm going to give you things that you can use, that they're at your disposal. You use them as you wish. So there's liberty that comes with God telling you what to do and giving you these precious things on how to handle things and go through the trials that come your life. It's at your disposal. It's like having your pockets full. And at the time that you need to go, if you're going in the eastern part of the United States, the highways have toll gates. And you don't get to go through unless you've got the toll for it. But I can tell you, there's things that have bound you and held you back. And you haven't had your freedom and your liberty that you desired in your life. And you've held on to things because you haven't seen how to get through them or to get over them or to get away from them. But God says, I've got things at your disposal. And I have set these things. And you're going to live and not die. You're going to succeed and not fail. There's a reward waiting for you instead of a curse to come against your life and keep you down and keep you in the place that is all too familiar to you. You know, we're afraid to do anything because we think we're going to fail if we try different things. But listen to this. It says also that it meant to set ordinances for observance. And what it's speaking of is the things that bring structure to your faith. You see, He sets things in your life that bring faith. The Word tells us that the trial of your faith is much more precious than of pure gold that's tried in the fire. You see, here we are. We're set in this place where we're literally being consumed by our problem. And God says, oh, I'm purifying your faith when the enemy thinks he's destroying you. When the enemy thinks he's got the upper hand, I'm letting all of that turn to your good. I'm not going to let you get destroyed. I'm going to let you get stronger because the enemy's coming against your life and trying to take you down and try to destroy you and try to discourage you and try to get you to give up. He said, in all those things, your faith is like pure gold. He said, I purify you in the trial. The enemy tries to destroy you, but I'm just making you more pure in your faith. I'm making you stronger. You come out on the other end better and stronger than when you first entered the problem. That's the way God does things. And the enemy tries to steal that from you and keep that understanding from you that you're the winner and the devil is the loser. Your problems are not to demand in your life or to overcome your life. They're there to be overcome by your faith and by the strength that God gives you to get through those things. Now it mentioned here, he said, the things I set before you, it says it was the blessings and the cursing. And it was for choice. There's a choice. You're going to take the blessings or are you going to take the curse? This was spoken in Deuteronomy, where God begins to bring the people to the moment of choosing their way ahead. God let them choose their way. They'd been in a difficult place trying to decide where to go and upon whom they would trust. There were all these things that came. They were having an experience that they hadn't had before. They were having a difficulty of breaking out and going forward in God after they'd been in bondage and in Egypt. And all of these things were coming to their life. And the enemy, just because they walked out of Egypt didn't mean the enemy stopped attacking them. He hit them with new things, with fresh things that they'd never seen or heard before. Some wanted to go back and go back into the bondage. He said it was better for us to be, in Egypt in bondage than out here facing all these enemies all the time. But you see, God says, I'm working on your faith. And I'm not going to let these things destroy you. Whenever the hard things come, it's God's opportunity to teach you how to depend on Him. There's a lot of people, they'll say, well, I would do this or I would do that if I knew how. I would let God work in my life if I knew how. If I knew the way to let God work in my life. If everything was, calm enough, then I'd know how to let God work in my life. But I want to tell you, the trial that you're going through and the hardship that you face in your life and the decisions that you have to make that are difficult, they are there for God to reveal Himself in you. I cannot tell you enough of the times where I was at my wit's end and I didn't know the way ahead. I didn't know how to get there. It seemed like everything was in my way. It seemed like at times like my whole existence was going to be destroyed. I lost things I shouldn't have lost. And I didn't understand. Why did I have to lose this? Why did I have to go this way? Why is it so difficult? Why is it so hard? And in all of that, God started putting it on my heart to go pray. And I used to go over to the church that I had attended for a great number of years. And I'd get there about 10 o'clock at night so that no one was there to interrupt my prayer time. And I started praying. Now, I didn't know what to pray at the beginning. I didn't even know how to pray. All I knew is I needed to do something different in my life. And I began to seek God and ask God for help. I did all I knew to do. But as I began to cry out to God, and I began to seek God for help and for answers, and I told Him all my troubles. He knew the troubles before I ever got there, but I had to make sure He didn't forget any of them because I remembered them all. But it started making me hungry to where I wanted to give everything to God. I knew I couldn't continue to carry the problem any longer. And I knew I had to give my problems to God, and everything that was against me, He was the only one that was going to remove that force against my life. And I began to grow and I began to prosper in my spirit. What started out as a struggle to pray for 10 to 15 minutes, after a few weeks and a few months, it turned into where I was praying. I'd pray early in the morning, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd pray at 10 o'clock at night. And I was praying 15 to 20 hours a week. And it all started when I had my greatest problems, and I was afraid of falling and not making it as a Christian. And God started something in me that became a strength, but it came from a weakness that I had for a weakened time in my life. For the time when I had no answers, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to handle it. People, you know how when you're in that condition, people come up and say, well, what are you going to do? Well, the first thing, you want to tell them, you don't tell them. But the first thing you think is, well, if you're wondering what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is get away from you and get alone with God and not listen to Job's friends. But all these things that you go through, they teach you good things in the end. Because God said, I have set something before you. And I have set things in your life. And it's just a matter of timing and a matter of a season that these things begin to come and they begin to grow and they begin to develop in your life. And at the end of that season and the end of that time, you are stronger than you ever thought you would be. You're a better person, a more faithful person than you ever thought you would be. You get to the point where God causes you to grow so much that people are coming and asking you, would you pray for me? I've seen you change and I need what you have. How did you get it? And then you tell them it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice and a lot of doubt in yourself. Faith comes from doubt. Doubt is a good ground to grow faith in because it responds very quickly. When you put faith into the ground, it starts taking over whatever is there. It doesn't let that ground remain what it was. It changes the productivity of that ground. And that's why in your trial, don't relent in your prayers. Keep praying. Even though you think they're not doing anything, God's listening, God's waiting, God's hearing, and God's ready to do something at the right time, in the right place, and you will see a difference in your life. But it all comes when you're feeling your worst. It all comes when you have no answers. That's a great time to pray to God when you have no answers, because then you're ready to listen to anything that has an answer. And sometimes God lets us get to the end of ourselves. And then when we're at the end of ourselves and we've emptied out everything that we have, we've done everything we know to do, we've said everything we know to say, God says, all right, they're empty. Now I can start to fill them and I can start to do something positive in their life. When the trial raises up in your life, we deliberate where to turn for our answer. What am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? But you see, we can go the way of blessing in our life, or we can let the curse of this world and our enemies overwhelm us. You have to get a righteous indignation. Whenever the enemy starts attacking you, you need to get mad. Not at me, not your friends, not your family. You need to get mad at the devil. You ever see people that they're loaded down with their burdens and their problems and they take it out on other people? Don't do that. Take it out on the devil. Be nice to people. You need them to be a friend or to be a help to. You don't need an enemy that's you make an enemy of them and you make them to where they're no good to you. But if you make them like they're a blessing, then they'll be a blessing to you. But don't let the enemy get in and rule your life. Deuteronomy 30, verses 6 through 8 say this: and the Lord your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed. You see, he cuts away what's a fleshly heart instead of a heart of faith, instead of a heart that loves, instead of a heart that has kindness in it. He cuts all the hardness away and reveals a true heart towards God, a heart that's ready to love and to care for people. If you think you're all alone in your trial, try this. Look around you and see someone that's hurting, or see someone that's struggling, or see someone that feels alone, and befriend them. Instead of taking the time to feel sorry for yourself, turn and begin to love those people. They're there for you to exercise yourself in love. It'll make a difference in you when you start to give out rather than having everything. Always you have to take in. You know, a drowning man always needs a life preserver or a life ring thrown at him. Why don't you be the one that throws the life preserver and the life ring out to people by your faith and by your love for them? You rescue them from their own self. Why don't you be that person? You can be that just as easily as the person that needs to be saved from the disaster and from the destruction that's coming into their life. You know, when the war rages all around you, just remember, you can put 10,000 to flight. Your enemies can mount up and try to overwhelm you, but one person can put 10,000 to flight. One person can cause that great of a force that would seem to be overwhelming, can cause it to run the other way from you. You know, the enemy's afraid that you're going to find out one of these days that you have power with God. And he's afraid that you're going to find out that you can put 10,000 of your enemy to flight all at once. You're going to find out just how great your faith is and how you can defeat the enemy against you. You know, people say, well, every time I talk about serving God, I'm going to make a change in God, the enemy really attacks you. You know what? Let him get near. And then when he gets near to him, get your hands around his throat and start choking the daylights out of him. You know, you're afraid. He's at hand. He's here. Grab him and start ripping his arm off. Don't let him torment you. Get him to where he doesn't want to come around you because you fight him so hard. And remember, when you fight the devil, you're the one that's the winner. And he already knows it. And he's already afraid that you will find out that you have victory over him. And he doesn't want people that know what they're doing. He doesn't want people that know where their faith is and they haven't lost their place. All these things are set in you. He said, I'm going to set this in you. This is going to become a part of your life. It's going to be something that you'll have at hand, and it'll be the thing that you needed to gain in your life. You've got what it takes. He said, I've set these things there already. Why are you worried about the enemy? Why are you worried about you might fail? Why are you worried about what your past is? He has set a thing for you that you know who you are in God, and you know what your defense is, and you know what your strength and your power is, and you know who's on your side, and you know that it takes so many people to try to even slow you down that even the enemy stops even trying because he doesn't want to get defeated everywhere. He doesn't want to be known as someone that gets defeated, but he keeps away from people and stays away from people that know who their God is and know where their faith is and know that there's a blessing in their life and not a cursing. That, you know, the enemy tries to bring up all of the things you failed in. Let that sink in for a little bit. How many of you, that's happened to you? Yeah. The enemy brings up all the things that you failed in. And when he does, you stop and you turn and you look at him and you say, but there's one thing. God's on my side, and I know you're the enemy, and I know that you're going to be defeated in the name of Jesus. I've served Jesus. I love Jesus. I have him in my life. He died for my sins. He died for my old nature to fade away. He died for me to have power in my life. And I'm going to start using my power on the enemy that's trying to overcome and overwhelm my life.